I took my mother-in-law off the guest list. Now the family's divided. It started with a spreadsheet. Not a fight, not a scandal, just a dumb color-coded Google sheet titled Emma and Jack's Wedding Planning. Cell D24, guest list, final. That's where her name disappeared. Marie Bennett, Jack's mom, my future mother-in-law. I deleted her name with one shaky finger while sipping lukewarm coffee in my hoodie, barefoot on the kitchen floor. A quiet rebellion. A digital execution. I never thought I'd be that bride. The one who draws lines in the sand with family. But then again, I never thought I'd be dealing with her. Let me rewind. Jack and I got engaged last fall under a sky so pink it looked fake, like someone filtered reality. He proposed with a ring tucked into a mini cannoli, kneeling in the middle of this tiny Brooklyn bakery where we had our first date. I cried. People clapped. It felt like a movie scene, but not the rom-com kind. The beginning of the kind where everything slowly unravels in delicious, messy ways. At first, Marie was sweet, kind of elegant in that Long Island Botox and barber way. She smelled like Chanel No. 5 and passive aggression. She kissed both my cheeks, complimented my thrifted dress like it was couture. I thought, this won't be so bad. Ha, cute of me. The first warning shot came at brunch, 2 weeks into engagement mode. Jack and I were splitting a cinnamon roll the size of my head when she leaned across the table, napkin still tucked in her collar like a lobster bib, and said, "So obviously we'll be doing the ceremony at St. Gregory's." I blinked. Sorry, what? Jack choked on his coffee. Mom, we're not doing a church wedding, I said carefully. We're thinking outdoors, maybe Prospect Park, something natural, a little whimsical. Marie's lips pursed so tight I thought they might vanish altogether. But we're Catholic. You're Catholic, I corrected, gently. She looked at Jack like he'd grown a second head. You didn't tell her about our family traditions? Traditions. That word kept popping up like a weed. Marie wanted the church, the priest, the 3-tier buttercream from some bakery in Huntington she'd sworn by since 1989. I wanted fairy lights and Fleetwood Mac and my grandmother's locket tied around the bouquet. I wanted my wedding, not hers. Jack tried to play mediator. Classic him. Let's just hear her out, he'd say. We'll find a compromise. But every compromise bent toward Marie's blueprint. Every call ended with me fake smiling and stress-eating saltines. Then came the dress. I'd picked it out with my best friend Anna. A soft ivory silk with a low back and a slight slit. Elegant, but a little wild. It felt like me, not the Pinterest version of a bride, but the messy, barefoot, slightly dramatic, real version. Marie saw a picture of it by accident. Jack left his laptop open, and I guess she couldn't help snooping. She's practically naked, she told him. It's vulgar. Jack told me that in a half-joking tone, but I could tell it bothered him, not the dress. Her opinion. I started, noticing the tension. Jack got quieter around me when her name came up, more hesitant. And Marie? Oh, she turned up the charm in public but kept sending little daggers through texts and emails. Just a suggestion. Maybe tone down the guest list on your side. Don't want it to feel too lopsided. Oh, you're inviting your father's new wife? Isn't that awkward for your mom? She was building a case, brick by brick, always smiling. And then came the real blow. Anna caught her at a charity gala, whispering to some woman I didn't even know. She's not right for him, Marie said, her voice clear as a bell. She's too artsy, unstable. She doesn't get our family. Anna texted me that night. My fingers went numb. I read it again and again. She doesn't get our family. Like I was an outsider breaking into a fortress. I showed it to Jack. He sighed. I'll talk to her. Jack, I said, voice sharp. That's not good enough anymore. He looked tired. What do you want me to do? She's my mom. And I'm your fiancé, I snapped. Where does that leave me? He didn't answer, so I made the decision myself. I opened the guest list spreadsheet the next morning. I stared at her name for a full minute. Then I deleted it, just like that. And here's the thing, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow, like I'd pulled a thread and watched the whole sweater unravel. I didn't tell Jack right away, but he found out within days, obviously. She must have noticed the RSVP card never arrived. We were eating takeout Thai on the couch, wedding Pinterest boards open on my laptop, when he said, "Did you take my mom off the list?" I froze, chopsticks midair. Yeah, I did. He put down his food. Quiet. Too quiet. She's my mom, Emma. She doesn't respect me. She's trying. No, Jack, she's pretending. That's not the same. His face changed then. Something cold flickered across his eyes. You don't get to make that call without me. I looked at him. Really looked. Maybe I do. Maybe if you won't protect me, I have to protect myself. He stood pacing. You're making this a war. She already did. We didn't sleep that night, or the next. The word overreaction was thrown. So was gaslighting. I cried so hard my ribs ached, and he just kept saying, I'm stuck in the middle. And that's the problem. He still doesn't see there is no middle. There's respect. Or there isn't. Love or performance. And now, half the family's picking sides. My mom refuses to speak to his. His aunt called me controlling. Anna says I should stand my ground. I don't know what's right anymore. I just know that when I walk down the aisle, I want to feel safe, seen, celebrated, not judged. And if that means Jack's mom watches from a distance, or not at all, then so be it. But God, I don't know what happens next. The silence in our apartment became its own character, like an invisible roommate tiptoeing between us, whispering reminders of what we weren't saying out loud. Jack barely looked at me that week. He moved around, like a shadow, brushing his teeth with the door closed, leaving early for work, and conveniently forgetting to bring up anything wedding-related. The only time he spoke in full sentences was when I handed him a mug of coffee and asked carefully, "Are we okay?" "We're fine," he'd say. But we weren't. And fine has never sounded so loud and so fake. The worst part? I missed him. I missed us. The real us. The goofy late-night cereal-eating, podcast-mocking, dancing in the kitchen idiots hits. I missed waking up tangled in each other, sweaty and happy and real. Instead, we were two islands. Close, but unreachable. Then came the brunch. Marie invited us, well, him, to a Sunday brunch at her place in Westchester. He told me in passing, like it was weather. She wants to talk. She's making lemon poppy seed scones. You know the ones. I didn't answer, just nodded. But the next morning, I put on a sundress I didn't love, tied my hair up in a knot that said chill but firm, and followed him to the car. We drove in silence for 47 minutes. I counted. Marie's house smelled like white lilies and furniture polish. Her living room could have been in a magazine, everything white, gold, and stiff. Even the throw pillows sat upright like they had somewhere important to be. Marie greeted me like we were old friends at a tennis club. Emma, darling, you look tired. Everything okay? God, I wanted to laugh. Instead, I smiled tight. Great, thanks. Jack hovered between us like a referee, one hand on my lower back, the other fidgeting with his shirt sleeve. We sat at the table where Marie had laid out a spread like she was hosting the queen. Quiche, tiny bowls of berries, fresh squeezed orange juice in crystal glasses. We chewed in silence for too long. Then she dabbed the corner of her mouth with a cloth napkin, leaned forward, and said, "So, I heard you took me off the guest list." Jack shifted. I stiffened. "Yeah," I said. "I did." She blinked. "You didn't think that might be a conversation to have?" "It was a conversation," I replied, voice tight. "For weeks. You just weren't listening." Her lips twitched, like she wanted to smile but couldn't find the effort. "Emma, I've planned events bigger than this wedding. I know stress can make people emotional." "Oh, no, no, no." I cut her off, pulse thumping in my throat. "Don't do that. Don't call me emotional like I'm some fragile little girl who can't handle a party. Then act like an adult," she snapped. Jack finally jumped in. "Mom, stop!" She waved a hand. "No, Jack, she needs to hear this. This family has a legacy, respect, standards." I actually laughed. "You mean control?" She turned ice cold. I raised Jack to be thoughtful, kind, committed. "You think this wedding is about fairy lights and playlists, but it's about values." "Oh, values?" I shot back. "Like gossiping behind my back and criticizing my dress? Like honoring family?" I stared at her, then at Jack. "And what about honoring me?" The silence that followed could have frozen water. Jack rubbed his face, groaned like he'd been punched. "Can we all just stop for 1 second?" "No," I said, standing. My chair scraped the floor loud and sharp. "Because I'm done pretending. If you can't treat me like a human being instead of a threat, then you're not welcome, period." Marie stood too. "You don't get to decide who's family." And that was the moment. The real moment everything cracked. Jack stood slowly. "Actually," he said, voice low and raw, "she does." We both looked at him. His hands were shaking. "Mom, I love you, but Emma's my person. If you can't be kind to her, I don't care how many scones you bake." She stared at him, like he'd slapped her. And for a second, I almost pitied her. Almost. "You're choosing her over me?" She whispered. "No," he said, eyes soft. "I'm choosing us." We left. The car ride back was quiet again, but a different kind of quiet. Not heavy, not angry, just tired, grieving almost. "I didn't mean to divide everyone," I whispered. Jack reached over and grabbed my hand. "Maybe some things need to break before they can fit together the right way." We got home and sat on the kitchen floor, backs against the cabinets, knees touching. "She might not come," he said. "I know. My aunt might boycott. Let her." He smiled. "Tired. You're kind of a badass. You're kind of a slow learner." We laughed. And it wasn't perfect. And we still had a dozen things to work through. And I'm sure Marie would find new, creative ways to guilt trip him. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. The wedding came 3 months later. It rained. The caterer forgot the vegan option. My veil flew off in the wind like some symbolic rom-com moment. And Marie, she came. She stood in the back row, stiff and unsmiling. But when I looked out across the people who chose to be there, who loved us, without conditions, I didn't see her. I saw Anna crying, Jack's brother dancing with my mom, my dad doing shots with Jack's weird uncle. Joy, chaos, love. I saw us. And when Jack whispered, "You look like a storm," before kissing me at the altar, I knew I'd done the right thing. Because love isn't quiet. It isn't always polite. Sometimes it stands up. Sometimes it draws lines. Sometimes it deletes a name from a spreadsheet because that's the only way it can breathe. And that's what I did. I made space for our story. No apologies.